Okay, that's as long as I could torture you guys with a waiting room and accompanying music. And I'll definitely have to chop this into chapters and then start here. So hi everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Margaret Pinard and you're on BookTube. What are we doing today? We're talking about some nonfiction from October. You know, I'm kind of trying to change up how I do wrap-ups for Wednesdays. And so I thought, well, I'm doing October nonfiction. Maybe I'll bring in any nonfiction I finished in November. And of course, I haven't. I've tackled my fiction first. So that's how that's going. But welcome to the Wednesday wrap-up. Pleased to see some of you in the comments. Always nice seeing familiar names and faces. I've got a question of the day up, which Jim has already answered. So what's a nonfiction book that made you think about it long after finishing? And I've heard Jim's answer before, so I'm going to ask him for a second one. So just an extra challenge. Feel free to weigh in if you come in at a later time and have an answer. I'm just going to say hello to RC, who came in, smashed the like button, and then went back to work, which I assume is writing, which is good for him. Savion was chilling, and he's the reason I tortured you all at the beginning a little bit with the waiting room music. Anita is here. Hello, hello. I have seen a lot of videos from Anita lately. I don't know if just the collaborations have been flowing through, but Words That Kill and Between the Pages, lots of stuff coming through, which is great. And Jim just put up a 1-minute review of a fellow booktuber's book, Elliot Brooks. Very exciting, part of his 1-minute review series. So here is Jim's first answer, Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. It's a fairly popular book. I haven't read it, but Jim has mentioned that he tries to get to sleep responsibly, and because he knows how crucial it is to human maintenance, really. And I remember Jim saying that, so the book has stuck with me as well. Anita's answer for the question of the day, The Demon Haunted World by Carl Sagan. That's a great title. I know who Carl Sagan is, a pale blue dot guy, but I do not know that title. That sounds like not something I would associate with him. Interesting. I may have to look that up later. All right, so Jim's second is 21 Lessons for the 21st Century by Yuval Noah Harari. That rings a vague bell, but much less known to me. It sounds interesting too. Okay, I'm gonna have to come back to the comments and go back to my story graph and put some more wish list books on there. Anita, I did not see an evil chicken video. I don't think so. But that is intriguing as well. All right, so let's get started. I have a shortened substance to cover today because the nonfiction from October, I was not very ambitious when it comes to following through. So what I had was 2 books, very unalike in dignity, as I said on Twitter. So one is The Electricity of Every Living Thing by Katherine May, and one is A Circle of Sisters by Judith Flanders. Now, Electricity of Every Living Thing is much more recent. Get the year. 2019. So 2019 and 2001. And in my thumbnail, I put a little check mark of yes and no. I'm going to ask you to guess which one I am a yes on and which one I am a no on recommending. So I'm going to go with A Circle of Sisters first. I'm going to give Victober precedence here over my Patreon book club book. So let me explain a little bit what this book is about, because yes, Victorians, maybe painting, maybe women, but you can't really tell from the front, right? You may know I've read another group biography about the women on the square in the literary neighborhood in London. I'm not going to remember right now. That's the first time I ever read a group biography. And so it's a new sort of subgenre to me. Let me read you the cool synopsis or sort of description that gives you some more information on this book. So I'll just read it. Although born to a humble Methodist minister, the clever and artistically inclined MacDonald sisters married up into the Victorian bourgeoisie. Georgiana married the rising pre-Raphaelite painter Edward Burne-Jones. Blah, blah, blah. The family beauty, Agnes, also married an artist, president of the Royal Academy, Edward Poynter. Alice, known for her wit and flirtatiousness, married John Lockwood Kipling, the head of an art school in Bombay. Rudyard Kipling was their son. And Louisa suffered from a mysterious debilitating illness, yet managed to write and publish several knowledge and married the industrialist Alfred Baldwin. Her son was Stanley Baldwin, a 3-time Prime Minister of Britain. So basically, she looks at these 4 sisters and the marriages they made and the families that they brought up and the culture that they had within their family and that they passed on to later generations, and whether there's some sort of special sauce to this family. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And both of these books I actually bought new, which is not a common occurrence. So, I was really sucked into them and thought they would be good. This one, I have some tabs to share as well with interesting facts. So let me see. I looked up discussion questions. Neither of these really had book club questions or discussion questions. So I just have interesting things that came across. On Judith Flanders' site, she has a quote from someone saying it offering a rare glimpse of daily life in the 19th century, of how people lived and died, of how houses were run and children were raised. Judith Flanders prizes open the secrets of a Victorian family, which she retells with wit, authority, and flair. And that was actually a quote from the huge Hilary Mantel writer who just passed away. So yeah, secrets of the Victorian family and trying to judge it, its legacy. It's an interesting sort of task. So we've got, it's the first thing I noted. Nope. Okay. I put my tabs on the side so that I know where the passage starts that I want to highlight. But when I'm going to read it aloud, I stick them up so that I know which ones are more important. And then I lose the place where I wanted to highlight the passage. So it's not the best system. Okay, so this was interesting. So the guy who becomes the Royal Academy head mucky muck artist first got most of his experiences going out to India to manage art schools, and that gave him some interesting experiences. Here we go. Poynter. He acknowledged the damage that had been done to traditional crafts and noted, as a rule, those of my students who have come to me direct from native towns without having received any instruction in the School of Art, capitalized, are decidedly the best. His ideas were radical for the time, but the results were appreciated early on. So basically he's saying if people got the same education in art that he did and brought up with in the UK, their creative ability was just sort of smashed to pieces. And so when he went to India and he got people from rural counties who came in without that instruction, they were still intact and hadn't been flattened, sort of like a military operation. So I thought that was cool. That's very early to be saying something like that, and sort of counter-Victorian. So that was neat. Then we've got meditation on the sister who is always ill. And it says, delicacy, fragility, passivity. These were the stereotypical attributes of the Victorian woman. Illness is the epitome of the first two of these. An invalid is doubly delicate, entirely fragile, but passive. As illness represented the middle and upper class image of Victorian femininity, it is possible that women actually dominated their households through the sick room. I thought that was an interesting point because I think I've seen characters like that. I think like Mrs. Bennet early on, sets the stage for people who, within their very closeted milieu of social influence, can rule the roost. And whether it's chronic illness, invisible illness, or the only way you have to exert power or wield influence, both of those lead you to a similar research. So that was an interesting little factoid there too. Let me check in here. Jim says Harari wrote Sapiens. Oh, okay. And Homo Deus. He's a gay, atheist, vegan from Israel, and a historian and philosopher. He's made some interesting decisions in life. Very cool. And Savion, so many had me thinking long after. I can't pick just one. Most likely because most of mine are on theology. Well, okay, young one. You've got so many to choose from. So do we. So see if you can give us one to recommend to the crowd you might enjoy. Let's see, another little piece that I liked from the Victorian group biography. Oh, another women piece here. Women were never, of course, in the forefront of society, but after they had fulfilled their biological destiny, in quotes, in both bearing and rearing children, they were expected to retreat even further, and that is what the sisters did. They were a long way from death. Indeed, by today's standards, they were no age at all, ranging from Alice at 51 to Louis at a mere 43. Nonetheless, they began a sort of mental disappearing act. So that's interesting. Obviously, she's finding less of them in her researches because they're less public. But that withdrawal that she can sense from literary and artistic personalities, she goes into diaries as well. So that's just interesting to think of someone at 43 starting to withdraw and going, okay, I've done my bit. I don't have to go out in public. I mean, were they serious introverts? Like, that's what I'm feeling here. All right, the last little tidbit I had here. Oh gosh. So this piece is about Rudyard Kipling. She starts with the MacDonald sisters. Well, she starts with the grandparent and then the MacDonald sisters marrying off and then their husbands and children. So she goes through like 3 generations in greatest detail. And I don't know much about Rudyard Kipling. I know he wrote Kim. I know he wrote like Jungle Tales and all that stuff that a lot of other modern things have been based on. But I heard he's pretty racist. And so like I never thought to pick up the original and really dive into it. So this is not encouraging me to do so. This piece says Rudyard had never looked after himself before. In India, his manservant had even shaved him before he woke up, and he found it a sore trial. Okay, I can understand loneliness, but the fact that you have to look after yourself and there's not a woman or a servant to do it, like zero sympathy. He doesn't come off well in this book. So if there are any Rudyard Kipling fans out there, I'm sorry, I'm getting maybe a biased view, but that is what I'm taking away from this book. And then here's the kicker. In the afterword, after you read 327 pages, were the MacDonalds in any way remarkable? Were they worth the 300-odd pages dedicated to them above? So that made me want to hurl the book across the room because ultimately that made me think that like, no, I just tottered around in some family's business and like there were some interesting things as I showed, but there's no real conclusions and it touches on a lot of areas that I've studied before in other books. So I was a little confused as to why she felt compelled to go after this sort of framing. So, Victober, there's my one Victober book, a nonfiction biography of 4 sisters encompassing very famous other people and coming to no conclusion. So not a great effort this year. But I'm glad I did it. I bought the book new. I can pass it on to someone else who might enjoy it more. So I have Adams come into the chat. Hello. And he's mentioning The Art of War by Sun Tzu in the comments as his nonfiction pick. Also, Eric Clapton's autobiography. Interesting. I'm sure I would recognize some of Eric Clapton's songs. Like, I think Layla is his. But I know him most famously because he was George Harrison's good friend. Sorry. So, yeah. So, unfortunately, the answer to the question of the thumbnail is that this is my no. It's well written. It's fantastically researched. It's well structured. But in the end, it's not information that I felt was adding to my research for books or general knowledge of the period that I can do something with, unfortunately. So there we go. Angela Drake has come in. Hello, hello. Oh, Savion's got something for us. The Theft of America's Soul by Phil Robertson. Not really theological, but Phil is known for being a voice in conservative Christianity. Interesting. Theft of America's Soul. That's a catchy title. Well done. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so that's the first one. Nonfiction's half done. We're good. The next one I'm going to talk about is Electricity, the Electricity of Every Living Thing. And as I said, this is a newer book. It caught my eye because Katherine May is the author of Wintering, which is, I think, 2020 or 2021, even more recent. And that was a big hit with my friend Mary Weber O'Malley. So she convinced me to give the author a try. Unfortunately, it was in hardcover forever, and I can't pay hardcover prices. So I went for her earlier book, which I think is going to be pretty similar in terms of themes and voice. So this is mainly about three things. It's a woman's mental health struggle. It's a walk on the southwest coastal path of the UK. And it's talking about autism and diagnosis in society as she sees it. So I thought all three of these were very interesting points, and I was very intrigued, especially the walking part, because I have like the dream to go, walk a coastal path or what's the John Muir Trail, or, just one of those long form trails and just really have fun and get really grungy. But that was the least that she talked about. Mainly she was complaining about the mud and the slipping and the rain because it's in Devon, and how miserable it is, and like her mental battle of staying out there and forcing herself to complete this goal. And so it's not a great advertisement for the Southwest Coastal Path, but she does come into some beautiful areas and witness some beautiful scenes. But basically, she says there's not a lot of the path that leads to talking with people or connecting. It's mainly observation. It's in a terrible place for weather, so you really got to pick your time. And there's some dangerous places. So not so much on the walking part, but the other two were very interesting. I missed some. Okay, here we go. All right, so Jim is saying Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee was haunting. Very good choice. I have that on my shelf. Adam says, I'll love the autobiography of Eric Clapton then, because George is all over it. LOL. Nice. JC came in. Hello, JC Carpenter. Doesn't have to be recent. In general. Yep. It's the Duck Commander dude from the show. I don't know the show, and I don't know the Duck Commander, so that doesn't help. Sorry, Savion. I don't watch TV, so yeah. Jim is saying Pembrokeshire Coastal Path looks very scenic, and Southwest Wales. Interesting. Yeah. So that is not what she is really recommending here. the other 2 points, the mental health journey and the place of people with autistic tendencies or on the autistic spectrum were much more compelling parts of this book. So basically, the setup is that she's listening in the car to someone on the radio talking about autism, and they're talking back and forth in an interview, and she's yelling at the person and going, no, that's not what it is. That's not how we do it. And when she said we, she realized she was grouping herself with people with autism, or in the case of when she was actually listening, they called it Asperger's. And she went, what? She had a wake-up moment when she said that, because she didn't realize that she identified with that population so strongly. And this is what set into motion her search for, is this me, right? Is this something that I have? Can I do something that would help? And it comes at a particular moment when she's a new mother and she's like having all her systems of coping break down. And so it's very poignant to see her grasping at something that could help her build back up and sort of feel settled and stable and normal in the ways that she can. So it was a great setup because it's very suspenseful to hear that and get launched into the tale. And so we see basically her walk on the coastal path as her battle to reclaim like her ability to cope, like her ability to deal with people, to manage time, to be in a successful relationship. And we're rooting for her, right? Her writing is really beautiful. So she describes a lot of the struggles early on, and it doesn't look good. And then you sort of leap into another chapter and like she's looking back on it like it's already done. So that's there's a little jump there, which it may be an editing thing or it may be just a personal thing, but it was missing a piece for me. But when you get into the second part and she's looking back on it, she goes more into the background research on autism and her journey to find a diagnosis. So she's on a wait list for a long time. She does her own like tests online. She talks to her partner. She tries to give herself more grace and space to process things because she realizes that might be having to do with the thing. And so I had never heard about any of this, and it was really eye-opening. I think I read this in what was it? October. I read this in October, and I think I finished it before I watched the author Tuber's talk on autism, which was hosted by Jenna Gordon, and Savion was there. I don't know, in person, yeah, and Morgan Lee. And it was really great. It was one of these like Saturday talks, and I don't think many people knew about it, even though I tried to blow it up, but it was really, really valuable. And again, mental health stuff that we don't usually talk about. So it was really interesting to know and hear about people's feelings about, especially empathy, because I feel like in a community, when you're trying to show empathy, you have an intention and then you have how it feels on the other side. And if with your intention you offend or harm somebody, you may never know that was the result. And so it was really good to hear some of those folks talk in general about when certain types of things are said and how that feels harmful or diminishing or etc. And so then it made me think about like how to treat those members of the community with respect. And it just got me started on a really, I think, good path of considering mental health and how I talk about it and relate to other people. And just like warm fuzzy. She ends the book with finally getting her diagnosis breakthrough, being like, wait, make sure I don't mess this up. we just had our discussion for this on Sunday for the Patreon book club, and I think I can't remember if it was someone's experience or if it was in the book, but I think the result for her was you do qualify, like you are in the realm of experience or the range of experience that would indicate you're on the autism spectrum. And whether you pursue treatment or medicine that will help you address this is up to you. And how much of a relief it was to just have that affirmation of her experience. And then, like, I don't think there's much that can assuage that, that can really, like, you know, change the situation. But setting back up those coping mechanisms and systems so that there's some feeling of stability and support, I think was the most helpful for her at the end. But, you know, it ends with the note of, this is the story of my life and this is how I'm going to go through this, and just sort of affirming herself. So I thought, this is a yes. This is a definite yes. So there's my no and my yes for nonfiction for October. And I don't know, have you guys heard of either of these besides on my channel? Any thoughts? Did I convince you yes or no? Or did it sound good or the opposite from what I was saying? I don't know. I'm curious. Let me pull this down and give you a quick, if you're interested in being in the book club, we've got one more book in December. It's Amberloo, which is a queer historical mystery fantasy, and we're going to be reading that in December. I'm very excited. I still need to get my copy for that one. It's something where we read a book every other month, and so hopefully that's easier for people to participate. And so it's Patreon_MP4 is my little bit.ly for that, to make it easy to remember. And then what I have next coming up, just to sort of slide this under your nose, is an author interview this Friday. As many of you know, I had some like pre-order giveaway prizes, and one of them was a guest feature on my channel. So I'm helping out a friend who is an author who just had a book come out. His name is Rick Bader. And so he will be coming onto my channel this Friday afternoon before I leave Saturday at 5 a.m. to drive down to California. So we're just fitting that in. So that should be great. And then we've got Voltron, and then I've got like some other stuff, but just keeping you aware of the next thing on the horizon. That is what I've got. And I've still got 5 minutes from my budgeted time. So I'll just chat about what I'm going to do after this, which is go to the post office. Part of driving down to California means mail forwarding. So I'm going to send a package to a friend and get my mail forwarding form filled out and submitted. I've got one more like life thing to do. And then all the cleaning, and then all the packing, and then Bean and I are going to be ready to go. So, do you guys have plans for holidays? Anyone doing anything interesting? Yes. Okay. I did get all you three. Good. I know there were a few people in the comments, and so I didn't know if I was like putting their faces on the screen when they were in the comments, but I think it was, yeah, I think I was right. JC's got an answer. The Diary of Anne Frank. Huge impact on me and still does to this day. Yes. And JC, I will just note that so if you read Caste, you come up against Isabel Wilkerson's comparisons with Nazi Germany and apartheid in South Africa, I think, in terms of slavery and sort of relating historical injustices. And Clint Smith III, I think he puts that on there because otherwise it's hard to recognize a Smith in the authors. He's fantastic. He's got poetry and nonfiction, and his latest to come out, he was tweeting about an Atlantic article where he traveled to Germany to witness memorials to the genocide of World War II. And the Atlantic article is about that, and I don't subscribe, so I don't have access to it, unfortunately. But I think a good chunk of that is in his book, How the Word is Passed, which I do have on Libro. And it's one of those books that it's like, it's going to be so monumental that it's kind of like weighing on me. Like, I know I want to dive into it, but I also want a friend. But yeah, memorials to huge war crimes is a huge topic. Really, really interesting. How you treat something in the past that you recognize was evil, was bad, was a wrong choice. And how do you sort of redeem your whole country from that? Like, I think America has a lot to learn from those. So, yeah. Yeah, Clint Smith III. He's around. You'll find him. He's great. Yeah. And the book, his latest book is called How the Word is Passed. Yes. Savion says, sounds like an interesting read. I have mixed feelings about books like this. Are you talking about the autism one? Yeah. And, you know, as everyone points out, with every relation of lived experience, everyone's experience is different. And so one experience by someone with a categorized thing, medical disability or whatever you want to call it, is not going to be everyone's. And so when we were talking about this in book club, a lot of us found certain things in here relatable. And yeah, we were just talking about how much of it is relatable. Is it a response to a, you know, global pandemic and like a bump on the road? Or is it something that you've always lived with and sort of built your personality around and have ways to like address because this is your daily reality? And yeah, so it's a really, really good discussion. Matthew Dixon popped in to say hello. Angela is telling me about plans for the holidays, quiet at home, alone, watching the parade, then writing. Oh, the parade! I forgot about the parade. Yeah. Macy's Day Parade. It's cool. Well, that sounds like a lovely holiday plan, especially for someone participating in NaNoWriMo. So, given that it is NaNoWriMo season and y'all are pressed for time, I appreciate you coming in to say hello. And anyone watching on the replay, thanks to you too. Feel free to drop a comment with your holiday plans, or if I convinced you as a yes or a no for either of these, I'd be curious. But yeah, hopefully a more successful Victober in the new year and more fantastic nonfiction. It's November. It's on my list. It'll happen. All right, guys. Thanks so much. Happy reading. And I'll talk to you again soon. Maybe even Friday for the interview with Rick Bader. He's got 2 books that are sort of literary fiction, family drama focused. So that is the teaser for the author interview. And hi, Eva. Bye, everybody. Happy reading, happy writing. Catch you later.